Welcome to our Human Design Profiles series. This particular video focuses on the third line of the 6 lines. And let's remember that the first, second, and third lines are all more personal. And the 4, 5, 6 lines are all transpersonal. They're more about relationship. So the third line here is more personal, okay? And in traditional human design, it's known as the Martyr. And in quantum human design is known as the explorer. And I actually like to call it the experimenter because I feel like that name is more fitting for the people I know who are third lines, but explorer also works. They're kind of in the same area and they're very different than the martyr. So we're going to unpack those particular names today so that you can move away from that more negative way that a lot of us have learned about the third line in traditional human design, and we can move more into honoring really the third line and appreciating their superpowers. The profile in human design is really important. It's one of the foundational elements along with your type, strategy, and authority. And it's kind of like your character. It's how you show up if you haven't been conditioned away from showing up in this way. It's kind of your innate way of wanting to express yourself in certain areas. So I'll put the playlist for the profiles at the end of the video and down below so that if you want to go and dive into all of them, you can. It's really great to know about all of the lines of the profiles because it also can help you understand, important people in your life as well. When you get a sense of, oh, this is kind of like their inborn way that they would normally kind of engage with life if they weren't conditioned away from it. And then we can support ourselves to kind of evolve so that we are really expressing our true essence. I do think that third lines get made wrong a lot because of their particular character. And we'll unpack that today. And I just want to say that I really want to try to dispel that because I think it's unnecessary. And when you understand yourself as a third line or you understand the other third lines in your life, this will make it a lot easier. So the number one superpower for our third lines is their love of experience, of trying things out, of learning through the body, learning through experience, wanting to just engage with different things and to do that through, the body wisdom, not so much mentally. I mean, they can be more mental as well, but the third line that's really kind of free to be whoever they are will like to try things out through experience. Now, if we consider for a moment that we live in a culture, okay, that really teaches you to specialize, to become an expert, to get known for something, to get really focused. Third lines don't fit into that at all, right? And when third lines try to make themselves fit into that, a lot of times they're pretty unhappy, right? They might get good at it, but it doesn't mean it's going to be really satisfying for them because the third lines want to try different things. Right? They want to explore. They want to experience. They want to really expand through the body and through how they are engaging with things. Now, if you've done any programs with me or followed me at all, you'll know that I often say that life experience is what teaches. Because when I teach human design, a lot of times people approach it very mentally or very analytically. They want to learn all the different parts. They want to learn all the data. And what I say is, okay, great. The data is a foundation. It's important to know the data. But the real magic comes through application. It comes through you actually learning some of the information about human design and then applying it and living it in your life. So the third line is kind of the poster child for that, right? Because the third line is the one I want to learn through experience, right? They may also enjoyed intellectual endeavors, right? They might do well in school, but they really shine when they get to innovate. When they like third lines, really empowered and awakened third lines can be like innovators, right? They can be wildly creative. They can be people who just say, let's just go try it out. Because let's remember that our brains tend to want to keep us in the same. Our brains are not so happy sometimes about the new things because it takes a lot of energy for us to engage in, the new, okay, the unknown especially. And so sometimes our nervous systems are like, I'm not so sure that I want to go and experience a bunch of new things. I want to try a bunch of new things out, right? Even though, you, in the end, you might enjoy it. And this is especially true if you're not so resourced, right? And you just don't have that much energy really to be engaging with new things. So just know that if you do resource yourself more, you do take more care of yourself, you do regulate yourself more, it'll be easier for you to engage in new things as well. But our third lines, they're just wired to try things out. So they can kind of become models for those of us who might be feeling, a little like, oh, I'm not so sure. I want to try so many new things. And you can just watch them and feel like, wow, that gives you permission maybe to move through some resistance that you might have had around trying some new things, right? Or if you have any of that mantra going on inside of you, where you really need to focus and you need to just do one thing, you need to just, get really good at this, you need to specialize, right? And some people really enjoy that. Our first line profiles can really enjoy that. They have the energy to kind of go deep with things. But our third lines, they want to try lots of different stuff out. And it's great when we have both of going on for us. And so this is a way that the third lines can really kind of support us also as we are moving into a new age. We're moving into a new era, right? We're on the cusp of the Aquarian age that is now coming into being. We're stepping out of the Kali Yuga, right? Which is a thousands of years time. It's really a kind of a dark time, moving into a more uplifting time. And so the third lines can be a huge asset for all of us during this time, because they're the ones who are going to be like, oh gosh, we need to invent new stuff. Count me in. We need to, explore new terrain. Count me in. They're the ones who just are naturally not held back so much. They may have learned that if they had parents that were afraid of change, or, they grew up in a community that really didn't like the idea of newness. They wanted to stay with what they knew. So they can be conditioned that way. They can be programmed that way. But if they are really free to be who they are, they want to try different stuff out. They're really drawn to that. And that can help us as we're moving into this new time, to help us just let go of some of that resistance or some of that fear, or to take the steps we need to resource ourselves so that we are more able to enjoy with the unfolding of what's happening with this new world age that we're all stepping into. And let me just say here, in traditional human design, the wording about the third line is pretty negative. They're called martyrs. And the idea is that they are here to learn through trial and error and through failure, right? Fail again and again. Right. And you really don't have to hold it that way. If we realize that learning comes through life experience, like I was saying a moment ago, right? Through life experience, we're going to like saying some things and we're not going to like some other things. We're going to try some things and oops, that didn't work. We're going to go, okay, let me try something else, or let me tweak that and make it better. And then try that again, and then tweak it again and try that. And, and anybody who's had their own business, you friends of mine who are like practitioners or teachers or entrepreneurs, have your own business, that you have to try a lot of things and some things don't work. And if you hold that as a failure, it's not so good. Right. But if you hold it as like, okay, that didn't work. Let me try something else. Let me work it again. And so this is one of the things that third lines are really good at, especially when they're supported to know that there are no real failures. There's just something that didn't work so well. But if they were told not to make mistakes, to be perfectionist, to always do everything right, and then they follow more of their nature, which is to try a lot of things, and some things, fail or don't work for them, right? Then they can take it on and it can be a burden for them, a burden. So if you're a third line, or you have a loved one who's a third line, please, if they do fall into that, help them just release this idea of failure and instead embrace this idea of experimenting, right? We're trying things out. We're exploring new things. Of course, we don't know how it works because it's new to us and we don't really know how we're going to feel about it until we engage with it. So this whole idea of trial and error and failure, doomed to failure. I've had people come to me for readings who have been like, I'm just doomed to failure. And they're really down, and they kind of feel like their body posture is kind of like that. I said, no, you're not. You're here to just experiment and try things out. And they're like, oh, really? So, if you've heard that before, please just let it go, because it's just an interpretation and you don't have to hold it that way at all. You can much more see yourself as an intrepid experimenter who enjoys trying out new things. And for third line women at midlife, discovering that you're a third line, right? If you didn't know about it before, or you're just getting to the point in your life where you were going to liberate yourself enough to use your third line energy. Because a lot of times as women, of course, we get programmed and conditioned to pay more attention to other people, to take care of other people, to kind of fit in, not make a lot of waves, right? Just go along with the program. Like, we really get heavily conditioned to do that, even more than men do. And so for, women at midlife, a lot of times they're kind of waking up to the ways that they've agreed to do things that aren't fitting so well for them right now, and maybe they never felt well, or maybe they did, but they're like, not so much anymore. And so I know when I work with women, in their 40s or their 50s, a lot of times they're like, I want to explore more. I want to go see what else is there. I've been living inside of, kind of one flavor. Right? I've been in this one flavor and I want to try all the flavors. I want to see what else is there. So this can be a boon for the third line woman if she realizes, at this point, I haven't really been allowing myself to go and experiment so much or to experience so much. This is why sometimes you see third line women, they decide to go off on retreats, or they decide to go on, a journey to sacred sites, or they decide to, go somewhere in the world they've always wanted to be, right? Because this is a time when they're tending to kind of strip away the things that have, confined them and said, you need to be this way to be a good mother, or to be, a good woman, or to fit in, or whatever it is. Right. And so if you're a third line woman and you're at this time, I would encourage you to just go for it. Right. Just see, like, what are the impulses that are in you that you want to try, that maybe you wanted to try, but you didn't let yourself because you thought it was not appropriate, or wasn't the right time, or it didn't fit into your busy lifestyle, or whatever it is. Right. Give yourself the permission to go out and experience, try some things, see what it's like, and take the burden off of it needing to be right, needing it to be perfect, needing it to give you the best experience ever. And just realize that any experience will teach you something, right? You will get something out of it. You will learn something from it. So just take that burden off that says, oh, this has to be like the best trip of my life, right? You know how we do that, right? It's like, I've been waiting to do this all my life. And then we have all this expectation. And then when things don't work out the way that we thought, sometimes we judge the whole thing. So just let all that go, right? Just let yourself be in the experience. Let yourself explore. Let yourself try things out. And no, everything's not going to be right for you. That's okay. It's fine. You just want to experiment enough so that you do find more of the things that you do want to be doing and you want to be going deeper in as you move through this midlife phase. And, third lines, they really support our sovereignty when they're fully expressed, because they do give us permission to step out of the ways that we've been taught that we're supposed to be, right? They color outside the lines. They throw away the drawing altogether and start over, right? They bring in a whole new set of paints because they didn't like that one. Let me try another one. That's kind of how they are. And so what we can turn to our third lines to be like, okay, I can shift away from the, kind of standard ways that I've learned to do things, or the ways that I've taught I should be, and let myself out of the box a bit and try things. So like I said, this is particularly important for women at midlife, but it could be true for any of us at this time. And if you are a third line, definitely utilize this incredible ability you have to engage with life through experience, and let that fuel your inner sovereignty. Let it fuel your sense of who you are. Let it fuel your sense of how beautiful and rich life can be, right? Rather than settling for something that's, not as tasty and probably is stale, and it may even have expired by now. So let's talk about the nemesis of the third line, because all of the lines have both superpowers and nemesis, and it's a little bit different for the third line. So the first one I would mention is shiny object syndrome. Because the third line, when they're not really in their bodies and they're not really grounded, they can become extreme in their desire to explore and experiment and just kind of skim along the top of things, right? And not really get the experience that is the thing that is really the value that the third line that can bring them, is the full ability to experience. But if they just jump into something and then move over here and then jump over here and, oh, that looks good and that looks good, and they're kind of skimming along the surface and they never go deep, that's a kind of superficial experience. And this is kind of a way that the third line can become disempowered. Even though they're doing the third line thing, they're not doing it in a way that's truly satisfying for them or truly going to give them like a deeper experience, right? So if you are a third line or you have a third line that you love, just notice that they tend to skip around a little bit and don't really go deep. And that can happen if they have anxiety about going deeper into something, which, a lot of times we do, or if they're too mentally focused, right? As soon as you get in your body and you really start to experience more through your body, you awaken your sensual nature and you experience more through your sensuality, you're less likely to do that. You're more likely to stay with something and experiment with it, right? And explore it, right? Rather than to just jump to the next thing. I always remember what my yoga master said. Because we were talking about, should we stay with this one practice for 40 days or 90 days or whatever, or should we do different things all the time? And she said, well, you can't go very deep if you keep moving around. So that's really true for our third lines, right? Is they can't go very deep if they keep moving around. And for any of you who are 1-3s, okay, if that's your profile as a 1 and a 3, because the 1s like to go deep, right? And then the 3s like to go wide, right? If you think of it that way. So if you're a 1-3, you might feel a little bit of internal creative tension, right? Between those different aspects of who you are. But when you can get them to really work together, be simpatico and, partner with each other, then, your third line can go and explore, find different things, and you find something really juicy, then your first line can go down and really experience it, really get deep into it, really get to know it. Our first lines tend to be a little more intellectual, mentally focused, but they can learn to really do that investigation through the body as well. And this is one of the ways that the bringing in that third line energy with the first line can help the first line have a different experience of their investigating, and bringing in the first line to the third line can really help that third line go deeper. Even if they don't go, as deep as that first line on its own would, still they can go a little bit deeper and they'll have a juicier experience, a more satisfying experience if they learn to do that as well and not just hop around. And the second nemesis for the third line is really not so much for the third line per se. It's about how they get made wrong. It's about how the other people's opinions can influence them. Because if you think about it, like I said at the very beginning of this video, right, is that our culture tends to teach people to specialize, to become an expert, to be known for one thing, to go deep with this one thing. Well, third lines aren't like that. Right. And so they can be criticized for being non-committal, for example, or for never being serious about anything, or just, not being loyal. That's another one. So you can imagine for third lines in relationships, because especially younger third lines, they might be that person, who falls in love and is deeply in love for like 3 or 4 months. And they're like, okay, that was good. Now I'm on to the next one. Right. And in our culture, that person is a problem. Right. But if we don't fall in love with that third line and want to buy a house and have kids and settle down with them. Right. But if we can enjoy them for while they're there. Right. Then we can let them go when they're ready to go. But this kind of thing. And for the third line, since that's how other people hold you, you can experiment with how you're kind of holding your desire to experiment, your desire to explore, right? If you're in relationship, and to be just kind of as transparent and honest as you can be about, the fact that you like to do that. You like to have lots of different relationships, and to say, that does not make you a bad person, even if culture might say that. And it doesn't make you an unserious person either. If you like to try different things out, like if you want to explore this kind of crafting or this kind of intellectual endeavor or this kind of sport or this kind of dance or whatever the thing is, if you find yourself kind of moving around, right, and trying different things out. I think about this like, my kid's not a third line, but I know as a parent, I really adopted the attitude that it was important for Sam to be able to try different things without there being a burden of them having to get serious about them. And I think that this is one of the harms that can be done to third line young people is that they get this pressure from their parents, right? What are you going to major in school? What's going to be your advanced degree, or what school are you going to go to for your profession, right? And they start talking to them about that like when they're in high school, right? They may have no idea at all like what they want to do. They want to experiment. They want to explore. They want to try things out. And here they're getting this pressure already to specialize, to narrow, right? And that can be really hard for them. And if they resist that, they can be made wrong for that, like I said. So notice if you're a third line, if that's been your experience, if you've had that kind of energy coming out at you. And I just really want to say from my heart to yours, you're totally fine. You do want to be honest and you do want to be transparent and you do want to have good communication. It's really important for third lines to have good communication because other people will tend to judge them if they don't. And even then they might. Third lines have a kind of big assignment in that way. But like I said, they also help all of us have more permission to not be so serious about everything and not feel like we have to commit to things forever. And think about this. Like I said earlier, like as we're moving into this new age, we don't really know what's going to happen. Right? And with AI, we don't really know what's going to happen. So the more we can loosen up this idea that we're supposed to be like, the expert in this area, the better off we're going to be, all of us. If we can really grow our flexibility and our curiosity and our interest in experimenting and exploring without having the burden of it having to be productive, the better off we're all going to be. So you enjoy learning about the profiles and the lines. I do encourage you to go ahead and subscribe, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. I'd love to know how this landed for you. It really helps me know how, the work that I do, how it impacts you. I would love to hear from you about that if you're a third line or if you have third lines in your life. Because like I said, this can be pretty edgy for our third line people. And then you'll find out about when all the other videos come out as well, if you go ahead and subscribe. I will put the link to the profiles playlist, like I said, at the end of the video and also down in the description. And also I will put, I have a kind of a little mini course in human design called It's My Start Here course. And so I'll put the link for that too. It walks you through type, strategy, and authority, and it will have the profiles connected to it as well. So if you're newer to human design or you want to go deeper with any of this, or you want to learn about, maybe you learned about your own type and strategy, but you didn't learn about your partners or your kids or whatever, and you want to go deeper in those, it's a really great resource for you to have here. And I have an extensive library here on all different topics in human design. So if you're just here, just starting to binge, I encourage you to go check out my channel because there's a lot. It's like over 700 videos. So it's a place where you can go and really explore. And I always love to hear from you. So like I said, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know how all this lands. All right, my friend, many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.